So yeah, first off, the big fun that we've had in ETH, and I think this is something that was quite needed, was that we did get the 4,500 ETH crypto alien punk sale. So that happened here this morning. That was I don't know the math on it right now. What is it? A $13 million sale or something around those range, or 15 million. Um, so a massive sale, which is good because prior to that we had, what was it, a $3.5 million alien node monk sale yesterday. So there's been some very large buys in the overall NFT space, but this punk sale, I think, is a really good showing for ETH. Kind of one of the discussions was like it's a battle between the whales on ETH versus Bitcoin now, and that's kind of fun. ETH has been suffering a bit, but I think it's just, to me, it's the volume of history, uh, in the sense that, I think we've always had that constant pressure, and sell pressure, and people have taken their positions on selling, to capture profits, or not even profits, but capture some of the loss that they've had from prior years. And so, even though we've seen some really nice runs and appreciation on quality products on ETH, when ETH is running, it's that natural expectation that there's going to be a correction in floor price. Bitcoin seems to be a bit of a mania right now, which is fun, but also super risky in the same sense that, everything is going up along with Bitcoin, and that is, where you're going to get just insane runs. But with that, if it does course correct, it can come down very fast. But right now, all the attention is really on ordinals. And I talked about it on the Thursday space. It's kind of where I was looking at. Um, Everything being really strong, I didn't expect to get this weekend run that we just had, which was basically, you know, 2x across the board, on floor prices, along with Bitcoining sustaining and even running yesterday, which is pretty wild to see. It is nearing all-time highs as we speak. It did cap at 68. I think the all-time high is just shy of 70. Um, the all-time high candle is really at a 60 68 on the daily. So we're treading right around those ranges right now, which is crazy. So I think if we break above that, maybe Bitcoin takes another run, or we could just be tapping it again, and then, uh, you know, reconsolidation. So really interested to see how that is. But starting off a brand new week and the inflows that we have, I would suspect that we're going to break, all-time highs this week. But I am no Bitcoin expert, etc. But there just seems like there's so much momentum behind Bitcoin, and that momentum on Bitcoin tends to flow downward into, other, ones, including meme, and that's where we get that kind of degeneracy in the meme coins, where I think the major, wins in attention are on the crypto side of things, which should then flow into NFTs thereafter. But like I said, Bitcoin is kind of bucking that trend altogether in general with ordinals. So it's pretty wild. So yeah, big day in the terms of volume. Our highest volume day that we've had in the last 6 months. My chart here doesn't go far enough back to really see where this day hits because of this, punk sale. Um, but like, if we're looking at where we were in September, this is 5 times more volume, on the day, than what we had early September. So really excellent volume. Buyer to seller ratio is, sub zero point 0.9, so a little bit lower. Again, really strong, ETH, values here. ETF pressure, I think, makes ETF, or sorry, not ETF, but ETH, one of the, better safe buys, right? So obviously meme coins are seeing the larger gains, but, I think, ETH is going to have a bit of a moment, when that ETF gets a little bit more concrete. starting to see Magic Eden here in the volume cycles, which is cool to see. A bit of a mid share in there, still very small compared to OpenSea and Blur combined. So no big traction there yet. Um, Average sales massive here today, because of the big punk sale. Indexes are holding steady in that 250% range over the last 6 months. Driven by ETH. ETH prices on the blue chip are sliding down, and we're looking to possibly get back to 6 month range on those, as kind of most projects are sliding. Captains seem to be one of the stronger collections here recently. Otherwise, all blue chips are down over the last week. Doodles 25%, which is uh, significant. Creeps are up on the 30-day, and meme or captains, but otherwise everything is down on the 30-day in terms of ETH, which is wild. Mid caps are doing better, driven by a few collections. Remilio babies, or redacted Remilio babies were really strong here over the last little bit, 2xing really over the last couple days. One of the kind of bright spots on ETH, and so that's kind of the ETH breakdown. If we look on Blur, um, a decent amount. There's very few collections up right now. That's fine. I think there's two pressures on ETH right now. One is the surge in ETH and ETH performing well. That's always hard on floor prices versus a ranging ETH. And then you also have competing pressures of meme coins and ordinals, where I think there's maybe a little bit of oversell as people reallocate funds, which is something I would say don't do. Hold your convictions in ETH. They will have their moment as the cycle kind of breaks, but selling and chasing, I think, is really counterproductive, because you're gonna get caught not really anywhere you want to be. So that's kind of the hesitation there, is not to chase, but will be interesting to see. I don't know if this punk sale here today generates a little bit more buzz on ETH, or where that comes, but want to see some of that activity on ETH to kind of compete along with Bitcoin. So ordinals, wanted to spend some time on ordinals, at least exploring kind of my process. I've dabbled in ordinals several times now. I've had some wins, had some losses as it goes. Um, but ordinals themselves, if you haven't traded them, they're the experience and the process, I think, is it's slower, but I think it's in a lot of ways just as enjoyable as trading ETH NFTs, and quite frankly, isn't all that scary, so to speak, right? So, ordinals came from the days of spreadsheets and trust swaps and things like that. But they're in a position now where you buy an ordinal, you're going to see your ordinal show up in your Bitcoin wallet within roughly half hour, as blocks move a little slower there, and then that buying process as well is gonna work pretty smoothly. So it's not too bad. I did have some success on Floriforms. What what you're looking for on ordinals now is narratives. We are seeing a lot of new collections, a lot of small free collections kind of run and pump, kind of like what we've seen back in the ETH days, and those can be super volatile, and most of them are going to run to zero. But there are certain narratives that stand out. So we have these really strong collections at the top, and then there was a bit of a separation with art. There are several collections on art that have performed well, um, and then just looking at what those collections mean. So, for instance, when I was looking at Floriforms, that was already a couple days ago. And I will say that I did have a nice win. I managed to lose that almost all of that went away on a couple trades afterwards, just chasing some of these pop up collections. So it's still just as it's not everything up kind of sort of thing, but seeing some momentum on Floriforms. Floriforms is one of several collections by Harto, the most notable being the Golden Ratio, because it's such a related collection and it's aesthetically pretty pleasing. It was one that I thought, price wise, one thing you get with BTC NFTs is kind of like a bit of a unit bias. So when you're looking at buying something, it's like, oh, that's only 0.05. That's not too bad. But I mean, you do the math, it ends up being pretty significant. So I think prices get a little inflated on BTC just because of that. But then this is a 10K collection. And so I did end up selling just shy of zero point zero 0.02, which was a good 2xer for me. But when I was doing the math on what this collection meant at 10K at 0.02, it was when you look at it to a 1000K collection on ETH, that's like a 2.5 ETH floor. So really kind of overcooked in my opinion at that point. Um, but that was a narrative that existed coming into the weekend. So watching for those narratives. One thing I think is, and I'm jumping around a bit here, and I apologize. I'm trying to keep my stream of thoughts going here, but one thing I've found that's pretty productive is to go onto Magic Eden, hit the Bitcoin tab if you're looking at ordinals, and then sort by sales volume. Gives you an idea of collections that are kind of running, and then you can kind of filter through the 10-minute, 1 hour, etc. I've been focusing on kind of that 10-minute, 1 hour. Of course, a lot of these collections are, um, like I said, gonna probably go to zero or mostly zero in a hurry, but it's a good way to watch for collections. So for instance, if you're seeing Floriforms and some success there on a established collection or something like, I think Hash Dreams as well is a bit of an interesting one. It's a new collection, kind of still in the process of a reveal. But if you see some kind of activity there, that's where you can kind of start to formulate collections that you're interested in. And not only do you see the sales that have happened within the 10 minutes, but you also see kind of the trailing pending sales. And, like I said, blocks can take up to, say, a half hour for an ordinal sale to complete. And so then you can kind of see more than that 10-minute window. But if you're to look at a collection, and again, I'm not sure if everyone, where everyone's at in terms of um, price. And this one's not a reveal collection, so it's a poor example. But if we go back to something that we can kind of see, um, buy now as normal, complete the transaction as normal, and in that process, it'll basically go into like this pending state. Gas is much more reasonable on Bitcoin. It's not going to stay that way. Halving and etc. will start to increase Bitcoin gas. So it's not like it's this solution for gas over in general, but it is better than what we're currently experiencing on ETH. And then there's a 2% platform fee by Magic Eden. There are no royalties on collections for ordinals, so that's something that is makes that trading experience maybe a bit better. And like I said, reduced gas. So overall, that's pretty good. You have the ability to sweep, etc. And then there's also you can show on high pending. I've got it defaulted to hide, but yeah, it's a pretty good experience there. I'm going to pause, see if anyone has any questions on anything related to ETH, NFT markets, etc. And feel free to also toss it into the VC chat if you would want to as well. That is totally fine if you don't want to come off of mute. I am not don't have anything up on minting activities at the moment. I will say that I have not focused on that as well as I have in the past. I'm going to make that an effort. to get kind of the Discord Mint messages out, and then as well try to incorporate a little bit more of what's going on beyond just ETH, as we've seen that kind of continued narrative across chains. So I want to focus on NFTs, NFT price analysis, and then just the general markets there. So. Mm-hmm. Okay, Tran and Kirby Miner are mentioning a little bit of a plug on Space Rider OG Pass, and so on there, a bit of ordinal alpha going through them. So that is good to know. Um, yeah, and I mean, like I said, ordinals super fun because you're seeing some of that um, past activity that we experienced in late 2021, early 2022, that kind of mania activity. So it's great to see some of that energy overall. Um, but yeah, inks on BTC is one that's coming up that's really good. You have Orange Eyed OMBs coming up as well. I think are going to be another one that's pretty major. So there are a couple collections coming on the BTC side that are fun. On the ETH side, nothing too significant coming up that I'm currently aware of, but there's going to be no doubt. Just waiting. AP's typing. Dig into some of the TA analysis. So a bit of a breakdown in a lot of collections here across ETH. So kind of one of the barometers of that was at the time Azuki. When I was looking at it, I kind of labeled it as kind of the critical one to watch, as kind of just the long term trend that it hit up in mid Feb. It ended up breaking down through kind of that support and then even further to that. So almost back to kind of lows that we had in August. So watching Azuki as they are in a general collection here. There's a bit of support in this 4 ETH range, but kind of overall looking a bit bearish there. And again, this none of this kind of factors the USD value, but I think anyone in this space right now should be still considering the the crypto accumulation versus the USD amount. So Scapes, I'm not sure of that one. I don't know if someone can touch on that. If Turan has any knowledge or anyone else. Miladies has quite a strong chart. Miladies has always been one that has been well informed when it comes to tokens, memes, etc. So they've performed well when we've been in kind of like meme season. And Escapes on ETH, I assume so. type it real. So many places to search now. Have they've minted already, right? Is that this one here? That's not it. Oh yeah. Yeah, nice. I kind of like the art on it. Obviously AI art, right? But um pretty sweet. I'm not seeing escapes at all here. Anyways, another collection that I've been really paying attention to here as well, and I'm gonna curious to see how actually Kenpai Pandas was a very interesting chart. I'm a little bit concerned about the what was it 99 token drops or whatever that was promised. It seems a bit of an over aggressive kind of hype promise. And so curious to see how that plays out. But quite a retracement here. Good support at this level potentially for bounce back up on Kenpai. Has anyone been active in on the ordinal side of things? So what I was watching here on CyberKongs is kind of this formation of a fairly large cup and handle. Um, kind of looked like we were gonna get it in that breakout. It kind of retraced here, so possibly still wanted them to break over kind of that 1.2. This collection is broken down into OG and then the kind of the the babies, so it's a bit confusing the way that's set up. Because you'll see sales in the like 13 ETH range, and then the other ones at the kind of the 1 ETH range. But CyberKongs is one that I thought was really well suited for some really positive activity. So gonna continue to watch that and see where they go. Also, thanks everyone for showing up and joining. We do this every Monday at this time. Definitely open to active discussions as well in terms of reviewing, looking at particular projects, etc. We cover the market at the beginning of it. We do record so we can post the video afterward as a kind of a recap. And it's a pretty consistent process that I tend to go through. Um, been spending more time on looking at some of the technical analysis here a lot easier to do that on ETH and Sol NFTs, but Bitcoin NFTs aren't there yet in terms of what's available for charting. So it's a little bit more of a challenge to look through on on how they're doing, um, but can still be done, right? So if we're looking at something like Floriforms again, just had good activity. That's one of the bigger risks as well as collection size and volume is where you kind of get trapped on some of these ordinal collections, right? So some of these collections are say 3K, but there's only, as of this weekend, about 8,000 active ordinal traders. So super low compared to where we were when everything was really running on ETH. And so with many collections showing up, it's a matter of, I think, people chasing the current hot collection, right? So um, that's one to kind of watch for. Blast, I gotta be honest. I have been mostly uh, fading a lot of the activity on Blast. Not that I think it's something that should be done. There's a ton of market cap and energy behind Blast, but so far the the sentiment hasn't been super positive. Not to say that there hasn't been some excellent wins in the terms of some of the meme coins going on there, and there will be no doubt some NFTs that pop off. But for me, I'm looking for more establishment on the activity, and I don't know if that's kind of one. I think just the activity that happened on Blur and the incentivized activity um, is still really challenging when it comes to market dynamics and what that results in. Right, it can be quite rewarding, and there will definitely be some massive wins on Blast just from farming. For me, I think one of the better ones is something like Wasabi Protocol, or say some of the more established brands that have produced on ETH mainnet to do some of the kind of liquidity and staking on them to earn points, and some of them are earning multipliers of points, and I think that's a pretty good safe play. But then you're also tying up liquidity in the Blast ecosystem, which again, if everything that happened in Blur and its success, lends you to want to believe that Blast is going to be super successful. But is it going to end up being much different than where base is, or anything like that? Does it kind of take traction, right? So, and a lot of that's going to take a lot of time to spend farming and driving through, etc. And then, quite frankly, there's still so much going on across established chains of Bitcoin and ETH and Solana to an extent that there's just so much to try and cover and stay on top of. So I've kind of stayed adjacent to Blast, and so far I think the sentiment isn't as positive or as optimistic as it was leading into the launch and everything going on there. So it's a TBD for me at the moment. So not to say that there isn't any good plays, and certainly if anyone's got any that they're looking at, for sure. And thanks for the question there, Bobachet. Um, or Washbat, sorry. um, the more discussion and interaction we can have on these as well, I think is super valuable for everyone, and we can shape these as we go too as well. So, but yeah, looking at something like uh, the activity that happens uh, on ordinals, again, it's not the typical TA or analysis that you're gonna see on something like a chart review. These plotted charts are a little bit different, but still work quite similar, and it's very much a momentum base. But what you're going to want to focus on, and what I've noticed overall is you still get those psychological barriers of whole numbers, etc. These obviously fractions, so 0.02 or 0.002 have been like pretty strong resistance points for these kind of like small cap ordinals, right? So watch for that. and then just watch for the kind of past activity, and then you're going to want to see the volume that's being traded on the ordinal itself. Volume, only way you're able to really see that is looking at the volume through the time horizons. Runestone for sure. So they just did the largest Bitcoin block, and are going to be a pretty significant kind of drop for Bitcoin and ordinals. So really kind of primary collections that have traded and been active. That's going to drive more liquidity into ordinals. I don't think that's really an ordinal concern at the moment. There seems to be a kind of a ton of attention there. Like I said, would caution anyone looking to sell bags elsewhere to move into ordinals. It's not probably the best way to manage, because as soon as you kind of pivot into ordinals, you're going to notice that you know ETH is running or something like that, right? So, um, but and then R6 have been pretty stable in terms of collection wise. They had they were pretty prominent about a month ago, but I think people are gravitating towards um, projects that resemble kind of the past success, so PFPs, etc. Right, and R6 are a little bit more complex in what they are, so they're a little bit more slow moving, but I think they continue to just kind of plod along, kind of thing. But yeah, you can see here on what we see for fluoroforms right now, they're in a pretty consistent downtrend from this kind of all-time high of 0.02, bit of a double top there, and then that's kind of like your ultimate kind of sell signal, or even if you look at it coming off of the run up to 0.19, they retraced back up, and then it created a lower low. That's almost your indication there that through this run here, you're looking to potentially sell off and move out on fluoroforms. Again, they're a collection that trades a lot of volume, so you're safer. But like I said, these ordinal collections can run super cold in a hurry, and they can get you kind of trapped. So, for instance, played fluoroforms did very well. Quite happy. I also, what was it? Pepe. Might be actually easier to see this just on, or actually Naka package. There we go. Your first clue on this one is it's a second collection from the original Naka Pepe, but seeing some really what I looked at was quite a positive chart, um, and this move up here up to point two. Well, I bought just before point two. Point two ended up being that psychological resistance, and it has trended downward ever since with pretty low volume to what it had on this run up. New collection, but then also the red flag that you see on this collection here is these buys that are out of place. So I don't know if it's project related or if it's someone just simply farming on ordinals, but there's like these sweeps that come through and they're just trading between their own wallets. Again, gas isn't that terrible on ordinals, so they're trading between themselves, and this is red flag activity, right? It's creating artificial volume, and as soon as you see that, it's time to really move out of the collection. But you can kind of the writings were on the wall prior to where I bought. Um, but like I said, things change quite quickly, and so you have to be willing to move out, especially on these degen moves. But if you're looking at larger collections, there's a handful of collections that are super strong right now. Art narrative I think is going to be still pretty positive. Something like hash streams could be interesting. I'm not a huge fan of them. Flares uh, are are also another art project that is quite interesting. But I think the art narrative, as well as some of these top end collections, are still pretty strong. Other questions, thoughts, or if we want to pivot to back to ETH or anything else. This this resistance line here on the kind of the long term trend here for Bitcoin has been really quite a hard barrier to pass. So it's bounced off of it now, really a few times at this range, and when it does, it's a pretty sharp move back. So again, this is the kind of the move you really want to see on the Bitcoin side of things is breaking above 67.5. That's on the daily. So if that can be done, that's a marker to watch for. Since we have a bunch of people that haven't been here recently, one site I think does it really well in terms of an overview of the general market is degens.finance. So this is done by the rec crew. What I like about it is it does have the ability to look at collections across all three major chains. Um, so looking at those three, you can kind of see where everything's at. You can go to the all marker and look at it from there. Doesn't have additional chains, which is kind of a bit of a drawback. It would be nice to see something like say in there, or even some of the L2s on this. But you can kind of see some of those as well on something like Crypto Slam as well. But I like this that you can kind of price compare floor price in USD, see where collections kind of reside out. You can kind of see now that Node Monks is exceeding Pudgies, exceeding Apes, or not quite exceeding Apes, but getting there. So performing quite well, and you can kind of get that price comparison, which I think is pretty important because you get that idea of like, okay, here's a collection that's currently at the 5 ETH range. Well, do you see it's possible to move beyond that? Then definitely. Awesome. I'm gonna definitely do some research, uh, Tran and Shakes, um, in on that side because, like I said, it's there's and I always kind of get this secondary thought of like how and I mean it's how healthy it is really for the space because we get this like fragment fragmenting of attention, right? So Solana last year existed. Solana was performing well, a lot of kind of almost hyper degen activity over on Solana. Um, some quality collections that have come out of it, but for the most part was just kind of like an afterthought when it came to ETH. Now we've got this scenario where we have the three chains all kind of having moments where they're where really the narrative is right behind them full time, and then along with crypto and meme coins and airdrop farming along with it. So there's a tension everywhere, which makes things a little bit more challenging, and it also makes things kind of run hot and cold, which is I think tougher to work with. Here's the Alien Punk sale, and this will show the top sales across. I think just ETH. We should see the Node Monk Alien sale on here, but it's not. So I think it's just ETH on the largest sales. They don't have so like you can click on the collection and go into a bit more of a kind of like a trading view, which is nice. It doesn't have Candlestick charts. Kind of the better place to get candlestick charts is something like NFT Go or Magically. Um, Either of those will be able to provide that, or to a more extent, Parsec. But Parsec is a paid service, um, but it does allow you to see more in depth. And I think they've added that for Solana now as well. Maybe not. I may stand corrected. Oh yeah, so we have Solana now as well. Price history, and then recent sales, which is good. And then hopefully we'll get that on Ordinals 2 coming. Although I'm not sure exactly how that Ordinal data process um, functions. Actually, something that we might not see on here yet, and I was kind of curious, is that um, something like Parsec probably doesn't have the Magic Eden activity in it yet, which makes it a little bit more challenging to look at some of the activity on some collections. So, like for instance, Corky's, you get this less candlestick activity kind of happening. Actually, this is the wrong contract even. There we go. Yeah, so I don't see any activity on there from Magic Eden. Bit of support here on Corky's in this kind of 1.2 range. Sometimes this doesn't reflect the active price as well. So, or to look up 1.39. One collection that I'm actively looking at here on Ordinals is Nat Cats. Kind of one of the I'd say top half dozen collections currently out there, seeming to be a decent amount of momentum behind them. So just watching there's a bit of a pullback here. So watching that entry on what's possible here for Nat Cats, but I think they're kind of interesting in the kind of the I guess mid range of ordinals. Um, puppets really were, I think, kind of the more obvious ones. I know we talked about puppets more than a few times here in these sessions back when they were at 0.05. Um, didn't act then, unfortunately, but they've just been probably the noisiest um, collection, which I think really helps. Quirky has something to say, maybe. No, now you're forced. Now you're forced to talk. Awesome. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I mean I've been super active on watching the activity feed here over the kind of the 10-month, or sorry, the 10-minute range. And so you'll see transactions pull through, and I'm almost positive I was seeing Megapunks flow through there on that. Hmm. There's the Bitcoin punks, and then so are they, and they're in the first 10K, right? Let's see, does that show that on the? Now, one thing that hasn't taken off, and there's been some one-off sales. There was that kind of the ordinal number two that sold for what was it, 1.5 million or something like that. And so there has been these pockets of early ordinals kind of capturing some attention and having some of those larger sales. There was an interesting discussion, I think, on Tyler's Space here this morning, where that that hasn't happened yet when it comes to ordinals. So these sub 10K collection, or maybe this is something I was listening to last night. I tend to listen to a lot of spaces, and then they all kind of blend into one. But um, right, so and then you don't know necessarily if the person that you're listening to is someone that you should be listening to as well, right? So I try to listen to the same um, spaces or shows consistently on a daily basis, and that way it gives you an idea of where individuals are on their sentiment, right? Because exactly, right? And so there was talk about the sub 10K. I think one of the ones that came up on that mention, of course, they were also admittedly a holder, was the shrooms. But there really hasn't been a collection that's stood out. I think one of the reasons is that I think um, Bitcoin apes, so just copies of Board Ape Yacht Club, uh, were all in there in that kind of that. I don't know if it was sub 10K or in the first 100K. So they, being something that is a derivative or a copy isn't somewhere where we want to be. So that takes away some of the provenance there. Um, and yeah. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. If I were looking at these in general, and we're making just a straight opinion on them, one, I wish that background was orange, or multicolored, right? So, um, orange is just, I think, something that is a flex when Bitcoin owners are doing well. So you have that orange background, then that just stands out. The other part of it, I think, maybe too much body to the NFT, right? As a PFP, and that's just trying to be hypercritical on trying to think of why they aren't something that's excelling. And then the other part would be just to take a look at, where are they at, like crypto Twitter following and all that kind of stuff. Like there's. Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah, right. No, no, that's totally good. And it's a interesting part too, right? Because there's that question of provenance and what stands out. What's the punks uh, of Bitcoin, and what's some of these kind of parallels that we can draw to to other collections. One I was spending about a bunch of time looking into and didn't quite get as much kind of conviction in as I would want, kind of so to speak, is the uh, another. Gonna try and make sure I get the name right. So they're the I think the Bitcoin Wizards. Um, and so what stands out on no, actually these aren't the ones. There's so many similar. Well, the Taproot Wizards aren't out yet. The Taproot Wizards are still, depending on who you talk to, are still anticipated to be the main collection on Ordinals. So whatever the top collection is, and maybe something like OMB is going to still be above because it's such a small collection size, but they're going to be something that would challenge Node Monks as the top collection. So they're still in progress. Quantum Cats are kind of their pre-launch, but there was a secondary collection, and it was very similar. It was something Wizards, but what they were is that they were all inscribed on original mined Satoshi and first transaction Satoshi, or not Pizza Ninjas. This is like prior. So Pizza Ninjas, the one thing about the pizza sats is there's like 56 million or something like that out there. So they're not necessarily super rare as a sat. They're just kind of they stand out as something that is interesting. Um, oh, the Wizards of Ord. So Block 78. So mined by Hal Finney back in the day, who could also potentially be Satoshi. There's lots of debate there. And then the um, mined within the first 1,000 blocks. Uh, and there's some other ones. So like some of these have three or four different kind of tags, and these are kind of the interesting part where they'll tag the NFT with what that Satoshi is. But something like this is kind of interesting because it's now a rare sat uh, part of it. I think one of the challenges though with this is that it's also a wizard, and Taproot Wizards are really the wizards that everyone's expecting. So, but they're at inscription wise, they're at what 11 million. So, unless you're early, then the inscription number doesn't tend to matter at all. But if they're super early, then they will stand out, right? But yeah, it's like it's an interesting spot, right? So like as most of us are predominantly in the ETH space, you're in this interesting spot where you're like, but no, like I mean, I want ETH NFTs to be king, right? And I mean, obviously the collections that have been in the space and have been building and have been established, etc., are going to continue to excel and you know build and etc. Um, but you know, it's also important as being in the NFT space and um, kind of experiencing everything that's gone through on ETH to see where parallels exist, and does Bitcoin become the main NFT chain? Not likely. And I think the big reason for that is cost, et cetera, should become a bit more prohibitive, through halving, et cetera, where the transaction fees, et cetera, on Bitcoin. And I mean, the infrastructure isn't as robust as what you see on ETH. So it's this weird spot where it's like, okay, well, do you continue to focus on everything you have in ETH, or et cetera? But I think it's still really important to kind of to understand cross chain, whether or not ordinals are something that's for you or not, is to be another part. And the other part is like, if you're a crypto holder, trading and giving up Bitcoin can be really tough, especially if your Bitcoin is a nice whole number, whether it's 1 Bitcoin or whatever that number is. It can be a lot harder to let go of that because you're looking at it and you're just like, I'm happy to hold Bitcoin in general, right? Versus trading it for an ordinal and no longer holding that Bitcoin. So Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I haven't. No. Diamond fingers. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So like 5,700 to 5,800. 100 supply, super early. Um, point two. Exactly. It only takes um, a couple buys for them to capture attention, etc. But in the same respect, when you get into those like super small supply, you're basically in the sense of you're trading art at that point where liquidity doesn't always exist. And then you're sit there holding the bag until you want to sell and hope someone buys, or you're holding it for duration. So it all depends on what your time horizon is. But something like that, you're looking at is, especially if it's a speculative play, then you're gonna want to make sure you have a larger allocation to be able to play elsewhere too. Not that I'm aware of. So something like flooring protocol, etc. I don't think they are in that ordinal side of things, but I think potentially as things develop. But the way ordinals function and trade, it may be still some time, right? The chain itself and what's necessary to kind of build more. I think ordinals are probably going to stay pretty consistent to what they are. So if you're looking at trying to get into something like a puppet or a node monkey, the only way you're getting in there is if you're like doing a DAO or something like that, which is uh, great when things are doing very well, but then if prices are pulling back or dropping, then it becomes really challenging where you have more pressure for individuals in that DAO wanting to possibly sell. So it's at that part's tough. So it would be nice if they had a fractionalized option, but hmm but I mean the way I mean Flooring Protocol is built. I mean it's possible that that could exist over there, right? So they're trading their separate tokens on Flooring Protocol. So all it would take is for them to buy some ordinals and allow for um, the kind of the trading on them from there. So I mean it's very well possible. So it would be interesting to see how that changes things. A bit Solana. I mean, I one that I've watched, and this is just kind of like a personal um, interest on mine was some of the art on there, and I've been really impressed by Root's work. And so he's someone that I've followed or listened to quite a bit on Spaces back in the day, and probably someone that you've listened to on Quirky Spaces about a year ago, maybe a little longer. And so really smart guy. Anyways, I heard about his work. Didn't get in on the original collection, but did get on in on this one just because I like what this is. And so that was interesting. I think there's a bit of a movement for art on Solana. Solana is such a joy to to trade with and transact with, etc. It's it's so awesome. And then Magic Eden, when it comes to a trading platform as well. Um, you know, not as kind of like power user as say what Blur is, um, but when you get to the ability to look at a collection and do some analysis on it, the kind of the pro mode trading tools that are available for Solana are they far exceed what's available on ETH. And I'm waiting with anticipation with some of this to come to ETH NFTs on Magic Eden. And actually, I haven't tried to check it out to see if this kind of stuff is there. It's not there for ordinals yet, but being able to see the candlestick charts and the different time horizons on there is super awesome. And then when you're making trades with fractions of a penny for a transaction and basically instant transactions, like Solana is super awesome. It's I think if Solana were the chain from the start, I think we would all be quite happy. Um, with the way that experience is for NFTs. But Solana has had a bit of a lack of focus on Solana a bit, and so as that some of the prices have pulled back. There's been also a bit of farming that has gone on through Tensor, and that's kind of driven a little bit of uh, uh, fluff type volume. But it's Mad Labs I think are still kind of the king over there, and the one collection that's kind of bucked the trend overall. But I've definitely paid attention to Solana, but um, it's in a down cycle to where it was say a month ago when it was getting all the attention. I guess almost 2 months ago at this point, where it was getting all the attention, and Ordinals was suffering, and ETH was backseat, and then it kind of transitioned into ETH, and then now to Ordinals. So you're kind of going through these cycles. So maybe in a couple of weeks, it's now Solana again. So, which makes, like I said, makes it right from the top really challenging when the whole space feels kind of fractionalized right now. Mm-hmm. And then, yeah, I mean, curious to see how some of the trading and rewards system works here for even like ETH and using Magic Eden. Like I said, the volume hasn't hit that much on Magic Eden for ETH. Now, that could also be a symptom of the fact that there's not a lot of ETH transactions right now. Um, but to see whether or not Magic Eden captures that, and if there is a bit of a farming opportunity for some of those rewards, or just natural trading opportunity to collect some rewards on Magic Eden. So if you look back to Blur Season One, it's probably the most profitable season for the airdrop, mostly because no one really knew what that airdrop was going to return. And so as a result, those that were heavily farming through season one performed very, very well. And is there that possibility that it's the same on Magic Eden? I don't know. I mean, it's possible, but they are also rewarding past activity on ETH, so it may not be as advantageous on the farming side of it. So, but there is definitely some incentive to trade there as well. I am past my typical hour. I will pause to see if there's any other questions. We'll chat or voice, um, and see what it is. If not, again, we'll be back next Monday. We'll also do spaces on Thursday. Like I said, I'm going to try and focus on getting the mint updates out as well. Like I said, I have been slacking. Usually, it's something that I do on Sunday evenings, and I just haven't been making the time on my Sunday evenings to do so. But making that mint list, and then hopefully being able to incorporate more than just ETH. And I know the list in the past has included cross-chain activity as well, but to update that, so at least then there's that kind of calendar of coming drops as well. But yeah, and then if you have any feedback on things we want to talk about, whatever, definitely shoot me a message either way, and we'll kind of continue to keep these going. Appreciate it. Appreciate the discussion. AP's typing, hopefully with a question. One more would be great. Nope. Thanks. Yeah, I'm going to be very curious to see, especially after this weekend, going into this week, and the recent massive Alien Punk sale is how do ETH NFTs kind of play out over this week. I think it's a pretty important week overall for ETH to kind of see some of the bleeding, if you will, stop on some of these collections. There's, like I said, so much attention on ordinals. I'm sure there's some floor price decline just due to uh, what's happened with people moving to maybe capture some of the attention on ordinals, et cetera. I strongly encourage that not to occur, especially if you're chasing at this point after the massive gains on the weekend, right? But then also the surge in ETH is also playing into it. And ETH has performed again pretty well. Um, not 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 as super massive of a kind of a gain as we've seen in the past. Um, and usually it's the 5+% gains is what really drive down ETH prices. Um, but now it's just a steady incline is kind of gone both ways. So it's maybe a bit of a bearish sentiment on ETH overall for some of the traders there. I don't think anything's changed other than Ordinal's just performing exceedingly well. So want to see how that kind of plays out over this week and watch that. And so I'll definitely update that on the Thursday space. But yeah, I appreciate the positive feedback, and going through that, it definitely kind of keeps me going. And like I said, I'm always open to feedback on anything that would help anyone else across what we cover as well. So I will post the video here shortly, and then make that available for everyone, and then we'll do it again. So thanks again, guys, and keep enjoying the awesomeness that's going on. Definitely the meme season that B3L has been so in touch with that I hope everyone's getting great success on. My focus has always been NFTs, so I haven't been as fortunate on the meme side of things, although I definitely should have been in there. But it's just kind of the way I'm used to from 2017 on, kind of playing in ETH and Bitcoin has always been kind of my joy. So, King C. Yep. Nice. Yeah, I think I still sleeping. The question for Say right now is are they going through that period of slowness that Ordinals experienced just a few months ago, right? So where volume was down and things were kind of quiet, and there's a bit of almost consolidation kind of build up. There's definitely some collections on Say that I think are really interesting, um, and that I think as the token itself finds its proper price, I do like the fact that it's in that dollar range, and when you're trading one Say for $1 to whatever the NFT is, I think that's an advantage. Um, that it's in those kind of denominations that make so much sense. Um, but at the same time as well, there's that fractionalization element where we got three chains that are pushing hard, as well as base, layer two, and things like that. That there's only so much attention to go around, so that's the risk point. Is you want to make sure that you're striking when the attention is there, and then determine whether or not the attention stays or if it's a short term play. So that's the hard part that exists with something like Say, um, is that it needs that volume and hype around it to really be successful. So and it's tough right now when everything else is kind of fighting for attention. So perfect. Lots of spaces. Uh, no, oh, it is his space. Perfect. Okay. Awesome. When does Whiff get on Coinbase? That's the moment we're waiting for. That's the moment we send it. Awesome, guys. I appreciate it, and we will catch you guys in spaces. Yeah, for sure.